All right then.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Weekly Wisdom show. This is our third show. The first two were kind of unofficial. I wasn't sure if we were going to do it every week, but I figured since people really like this sort of thing, why don't we make this a regular thing? So my name is Brian Wallace. I'm the founder and CEO of Now Sourcing. We're a top-rated infographic design agency, but that's not what this show is about. If you want to check that out, go on to nowsourcing.com. But this is all about weekly wisdom. So things that I've learned, practical business things for my 10 years running a startup and all sorts of practical business experience in years before that. And I find that a lot of people, when it comes to entrepreneurship, like to just dance around the hard things, and they just like to talk about easy things and congratulate each other because, you know, who doesn't want to do that? And it's a fun kind of thing to do stuff like that. But I like to dig into some of the harder things. So we sometimes cover, you know, stuff like, I love the Inc.com, what on that? Oh, right. There's a particular article on Inc.com where the writer talks about how entrepreneurship is very much like riding a lion. So to the outside world, everybody's like, oh, wow, you're riding a lion. And then, you know, you, the entrepreneur, are like in a fetal position, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get off this? And how am I not alive? So we try to brighten up everybody's day each week, talking about ways to not get eaten alive in business. So one of the things that the main thing we want to talk about today is what you want to be when you grow up. So this isn't, you know, your high school counselor or your college counselor. This is people that have been out there in the workforce and just watched all sorts of things change within the industry. And then what do you do next? So today we have Lucretia Pruitt. Lucretia's been there, done that for all sorts, and thank you for joining. It's been there, done that for all sorts of things. Everybody knows her on Twitter from the day as Geeky Mommy, right? But
no, I just moved on. But yeah.
But we've moved on since then, and now that Twitter isn't a year old and you don't want to be a mommy blogger, now, you know, we're here to help you.
I was never
redefine yourself, what you want to be when you grow up. You're super smart. What's that?
I said I was never a mommy blogger. Just that was a mistake.
Say again?
I was never a mommy blogger. Never was a mommy blogger.
Can you repeat? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Did you? You look like you might have frozen up on me a little bit. I'm getting some latency.
Yeah. It's saying.
And I see.
Yes. Please do spill me about.
Sonia, I have the most.
Yeah, and no offense.
Huge respect for mom
out
bloggers.
There.
Huge. I know some of.
Great. This isn't a diss mom method. Great. Just so we're clear, I'm not saying mommy bloggers aren't real business or anything like that. Apologies for any lag, guys.
So
yeah,
guys, which one are you getting lag on? Are you getting a lag on me or are you getting lag on Brian? Because we're kind of trying to work out that on Brian still for Robin.
For me, huh?
Sonia, what about you? We're lagging between each other.
There could be between each other. Okay. Fancy, thanks for coming.
We will have to, I'm going to let Brian talk a little bit and then I'll talk. Okay.
We'll do our best. And by no means am I picking on mom bloggers or anything like that. All I'm pointing out in this case, just so you understand some of the backstory. Welcome back, Lucretia. I see you now. Yeah, I'm just saying that Lucretia was doing that for a while and now she's looking to do other things. By no? Okay, no. Here, I'm not going to talk about this. All right, so.
Just one clarification.
Let's
I was never a mommy blogger. I know fabulous mommy bloggers, and I've known, I mean, literally thousands of them, but that was my problem. I had the name mommy in my title and everybody automatically said, you must be a mommy blogger, which I wasn't. So moving on, we'll go back to that.
Okay.
Hey,
and Robin brings up a
Brian,
go ahead.
Blenster is saying that you've been having some ongoing lag issues in this episode and the previous ones. Just down in our comments section, I'm seeing that.
I may have to get into some more technical support stuff with Blab later on, or maybe try a different device. Can get Blab help by typing help. Okay,
thanks,
good.
Robin.
So there may be some check things that we'll check on in a little bit. If we're coming in okay right now, let's keep it going. And Robin has a good point now too. Lifestyle blogger is a better term now for mom blogger and mommy blogger.
Lifestyle blogger.
And mom's definitely looking Yeah, and I think, just blogs in general sometimes have a little bit of an issue. So a lot of people, when they're first getting accustomed to blogging, see bigger bloggers than themselves, and they say, oh, I can just make a lot of money blogging. And that's not always the case. I find a lot of people, whether they're doing product endorsements, if they're selling another kind of product or service. A good suggestion. Make sure my Skype is fully closed. That's a good idea. I'm going to make sure Skype is 100% closed. I'm going to quick bounce off, Lucretia, and I'm going to come right back on.
Robin says that if you make me a co-host, it won't shut down. I won't do anything, I promise, while you're gone.
Oh, sure.
She had said before
How do you make someone a co-host?
Okay. And Robin, our wonderful source, how do we make somebody a co-host? Oh, see, she's typing. I know she's typing madly.
And I'm making sure.
Last time you used a /co-host command, according to Blintster. Roll mouse over the photo on top and click the H. You guys are such a great resource. I think this is what I like best about this. I can read the chat and people who know exactly what they're doing.
Okay, Brian, on Lucretia's video, click on her name, and you will see a box pop up, and there'll be a little H on the upper left-hand side of that box.
Got it.
Click on that, and you just made her a co-host. That's it. That's all you have to do.
All right, and we will wait patiently for you.
Okay.
And
I'll put hashtag awesome in there, even though.
And make sure Skype doesn't automatically. I hope when he comes back, make sure he doesn't have Skype set to automatically come on when he reboots his computer, because that's the thing. It may still be running in the background a little bit. Skype likes to hang on. So
you have to kill Skype manually. I've learned that the hard way myself many times with this, because it demands resources.
It does. But Skype is a fabulous product. It has its place, but it just doesn't play well with Blab for some reason. So I always have to turn mine off before I do Blab as well.
So what did that, and maybe I'm just not seeing it because I'm using an iPad rather than my laptop, which I should, but there was a /awesome and a /snow that apparently do effects.
Okay. Well, the awesome isn't doing anything. I think that was he just was,
awesome.
Yes. The snow, it was a function over the holidays. It looks like they took it out. But what happened before when we did /snow is that snow appeared and it kind of trickled down the whole screen. And it was very fun. But it looks like they've taken it out. The holidays are over. But I'm sure Blab will be putting in more little Easter eggs like that and fun little things. So
these are fun things about learning. And I really, knowing about the Skype conflict for me is a really useful thing, because I do plan on using this again. Skype has.
Yeah. And you want to use Chrome. Chrome is the most compatible browser for Blab. Yeah. But that's the most compatible. Firefox, I think, is starting. Some people are using it, but Chrome really is it. And if you're on an iOS device, there is a Blab app, which I'm sure is is that what you're using now, Lucretia? Is the app, or you're doing it directly?
I'm using the app. It's actually a relatively decent app, all things considered.
Is. Yeah.
And I think this is a fabulous app for being an audience member.
Right.
Just because it's.
Yeah. And Eileen, who I sent you, I sent it to in private message. She has a great cheat sheet. She's an iOS user also, that will explain better how to use it within those things. Within iOS devices. Android devices, you can use it on your phone, but it's just kind of a window into it, and they're releasing a full Android Blab app soon. So, all right, Brian.
I'm back.
All right.
I'm going to log out again.
Okay. Between technical issues and pissing off everyone in the blog community and mom bloggers and lifestyle bloggers,
you didn't piss anybody off.
I better make the rest of the show.
Very understanding.
Awesome. And thank you very much, Robin, for jumping on in. And thank you so much. Good idea I noticed there was not just Skype running in the background, but Slack, also a wonderful product. We're not dissing it. everything seems to be working a lot smoother. Not sure if it was connection stuff, but in the future, definitely good stuff to know. And Joshua, thanks so much for joining. So let's get back to it. So let's talk a little bit about what you want to be when you grow up. I feel like a lot of people, just about everyone, when you're just a little kid, everybody's creative, right? And everybody has wonderful dreams. And everyone's a painter, and everyone's an artist, and everyone likes music, and everybody dreams tremendously. And then we grow up, and then we work for a corporation. And again, corporations are great too. Man, I'm just full of beans today. I mean, have a little more coffee. What's really in this coffee, huh? Gosh. So I'm not saying corporations are bad, but yes, adults really have a problem sometimes with creativity. And to really channel that creativity into something that you love and you can actually get paid for, that's a tough one. And I find that a lot of people can be creative, whether it's at a corporation, tech startup, whatever it is that they want to be. I think that they lose a lot of that. And I think as entrepreneurs, something that many of us have in common is we all fight very hard to get some of that back, whether it's some level of power and control over your destiny or not, taking it from a boss, which I think is a little bit of a fallacy because, when you're an entrepreneur, basically everyone's your boss. So I don't know if that's exactly something that translates well, but I think really
Sonia had a point. Sonia has a big point, and it's my Achilles heel personally. I don't know what yours is. Everyone's creative, but few of us are disciplined enough to turn creative into product. And that is I'll own up. That is my number one Achilles heel. Unless somebody else is looking over my shoulder and saying, you've got a deadline, I find other things to do.
Very true and very good. Yeah. It's tough to find that balance of a trained mind that isn't just, a child kind of running from thing to thing without responsibility, because at the end of the day, you probably want to get paid for your efforts. So I can be good at X and Y and Z and all these other crazy kinds of things, but how do I manage my time? And how do I figure out what people are going to pay me for? How am I going to figure out how to merge together all of the different tools? I talk to a lot of people that really run into this, and yeah, it definitely is a skill and you can learn from it if you want, without a doubt. And Ben has a great point too. That's where a co-founder can come in handy. Obviously, since I'm starting off with the world here, I might as well agree and disagree with that statement too. I think partnerships and co-founders, it's a very delicate balance that you have to get into for something like that. So I'm
finding the right
technically I'm a co-founder. I started Now Sourcing with my wife, but we focus on completely different virtual assistants. Also good. I think that you have to be very, very careful when it comes to picking the right co-founder, the right partner for your business, because if you guys are not in sync, you will strangle each other, figuratively or literally. It can turn very ugly. A lot of fights turn into money, especially when the money is tight. A lot of times you can
not take a marriage.
Ongoing.
It's harder than a marriage, to be honest with you. And I'm going to tell you that because there's a certain amount of if you are a co-founder or you're doing a startup, you are spending more time with your co-founder usually than pretty much anybody else in your life. And if you're in a marriage, there's a little bit of give, there's a little bit of leeway. But if you're a co-founder, you are literally, every decision you make affects the business. So I almost think it's harder to find the right co-founder than it is to find the right spouse. And my husband agrees with me. So.
It's a beast, the right co-founder. Yeah, it really is. And, virtual assistant or a physical in-person assistant, I think that there's a lot of debate on that. I know a lot of people love it. A lot of people aren't crazy about it. Some people want to do everything. You certainly can't do everything. As you get larger as an organization, you most definitely have to delegate to in-house staff, contractors, virtual assistants, whatever it is. And I think that different people have different ideas on what's appropriate to have those assistants do and what's not. And then an interesting thing that's kind of evolved into the world these days is artificial intelligence jumping into the game too. So for those of you who've seen stuff like Amy Ingram, which is this artificial intelligence robot, which acts like a virtual assistant for your calendar. So let's say Lucretia and I want to set a meeting. I can CC Amy, and Amy, knowing my full calendar, my preferences, where my office is, where I like to meet people, it can start asking Lucretia, oh, where would you like to meet Brian? And it just talks like a person, and it's crazy.
Sonia, where do we find Amy? This Amy of ours. Sonia's asking you that one.
Amy is, Amy is actually, it's an AIVA, which sounds like a really weird word, but that's exactly what it is. It's actually x.ai, and it's currently in beta, and you have to sign up for access. And if you sign up now, I think they're probably a couple of months behind. It's really insane. It probably scares a lot of virtual assistants because this is what a lot of them do in a sense. And there's a lot of artificial intelligence that jumps into this whole world. So even in the legal field, right? So I can see where, like figuring out what somebody's calendar is or something is one thing, but how about the legal field? Has anybody here ever heard of something called Hire Peter?
No, but you see, I have a background in the legal field, so I'm curious about this as well. So tell us about that one.
This one's nuts too. Yeah, so Peter, and I'll throw that link in here. Thanks for joining, Renee. Appreciate you. Peter, basically, the assumption here is if you send it a bunch of lower level stuff that you would need to build a huge firm, that's the kind of thing. When you grow up, you want to be artificial.
Virtual paralegal rather than a virtual assistant.
Yes. Right, exactly. So it gets into the legal field, which sort of makes sense. And it's interesting. This whole world of artificial intelligence is really going to get into its own.
Oh, you're lagging out on me here. Is that me? I'm afraid it is. I'm hoping it's not.
Eventually, in a bigger way.
Okay.
I think we're losing you a little bit. Where's that you're losing me?
Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, boy.
Brian, we're losing you again. I'm not sure what the conflict is, but you're on.
Let's see what's going on here.
And okay, well, I'm relatively sure whatever conflict is happening on his computer will resolve itself.
Can you guys still hear me?
We can now hear you a little bit, and you've gone away. So hopefully, suddenly now I get to.
Okay, how's that, guys?
It's coming back again. I think we might just have a few. Back. You're back. Okay. Thanks for bearing with us, everybody. It's an adventure in tech for us too. Are you downloading a game or something now? Sourcing, wife watching Netflix. I can,
you hear me?
And then you go again.
Well, the kids jumped back on again to other networks.
And Brian has Renee.
I'll do a quick pause on the recording, and let's see what is the root of some of these issues. Bear with us, guys, for just a moment. And we're back, and hopefully we're here to stay. I just reset the router, made sure a whole bunch of devices were off. Internet speed is pretty decent here, so hopefully it'll hold up again. It has been snowing here a little earlier. I'm just wondering if there was anything on external lines or anything. But as it is right now, it seems to be working. So let's hope we can keep it going.
We're on again then.
Yes, we are here. Hopefully we're here to stay. Good time. So without further ado, Lucretia, you were saying you were going to jump into some more about what we were going to talk about today.
You know what? While you were gone, we were talking about the fact that there was a point in time where when your life expectancy was in your 40s or 50s, you could kind of decide about 18 what you wanted to be when you grew up and have some semblance of a clue what you're talking about for the rest of your life. But with a life expectancy now of somewhere between 70 to 80, to say at 18, this is what I do for the rest of my life is pretty unrealistic for most of us. And if you have experiences in multiple fields, right now, there's just so much to choose from. It's kind of a distraction. It's kind of hard to say, what do I want to be next? What do I want to do? Where am I headed with this? Because most of the jobs that we're all doing right now didn't exist 20 years ago.
It's very true. And you're really hitting on three main points that are very important. One, life expectancy is huge. Two, the fact that there are not only things that didn't exist 20 years ago, but 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And in the next 2 to 5 years, there will be entire categories of things that don't even really exist today, right? So where this world is going is pretty insane. And then just the way the world works completely has changed. So for those of you that are familiar with Seth Godin's book, Linchpin, he talks about the death of the factory. So people used to be able to go and work at the Ford plant for 50 years, get the gold watch, and everything was taken care of for them. But if you actually look at the statistics in this day and age, what's happening these days is an entirely different story. The corporation, as it were, I'm not here to pick on big corporate. We work for plenty of corporations. Apparently we don't work by me saying that one, but just insert factory model, insert corporation here. If you actually look at the numbers, the growth driver in business in America today is actually small business. Companies that are under 100 employees as opposed to large corporations, which tend to, let's say, lay off a whole bunch of people, and then maybe they do bring on other people as the situation turns around, but they might not bring as many people. They might be bringing on contractors. So it's an entirely different world, and most people job hop, if you will, every 4 years top. We have people nowadays that if you're at a job for more than 4 years, they almost think you're crazy. I don't think that that's necessarily true. I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with staying at a job for longer. In fact, if you look at LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman has an entirely different kind of strategy. If you read his book, he talks about how companies and employees basically make a deal now. They make a handshake, and he calls it a tour of duty that the employer and the employee goes on together. So they go together as a team, they build something, it works, and then they reassess and they reevaluate. Now, that's all fine and dandy to write in a book, but rubber meets the road. Where does this actually come into play? So we've got so many things on our plate here, and everybody's busy, and cost of living is pretty crazy in a lot of different places that people can live. And certainly there's also downsizing and all of that. So there's so many factors on the plate, so many different things that people can be good at. So, and then we're sitting here on Blab, right? And hopefully
exactly. So many things we could do except for, well, it's Sunday. It's Sunday. We can get away with it on Sunday. It's Sunday, right? Unless we're East Coasters, in which case we have to get a jump on Monday by working on Sunday, which is
right.
Pretty much everyone on the East Coast.
Yeah, and there's other countries that they work on Sunday. So, I mean, it's cool. And let's see. So I'm just going through. I see there's a few other folks that are jumping in with some questions and comments here. I see Ben was talking about analysis paralysis and opportunity overload and what ideas to pursue. Yeah.
I suffer from
yeah, everybody. I think basically everybody who's on and everybody that's listening in to this type of recording, I'm sure can definitely get into that. How in the world can you figure out what to focus on when there's so many different opportunities? Renee has a good point here, admitting to herself what she loves to do. Yeah, I think that that's important because, you look at a lot of these great startups that come out and they unicorn or whatever, buzzword there is today, the fair weather buzzword. But the reality is, if you don't love it, if you just read Entrepreneur Magazine and you say, oh, look, this particular area of business is something that should make a lot of money, you could be temporarily fulfilled and you're going to be excited and it's going to be rewarding in the form of money. But if you ask a lot of people in this day and age, order the top 10 things of why they work for someone or what they're trying to do in a business, money is not the first thing. Money is important. Money is a tool, but it's not the top thing for people because there's a lot of things you can do to make money. You can do something that's very unskilled, very simple, and in a lot of places, frankly, get by. Or you could take on a lot of freelance work. So how in the world do you figure out what to do and what you want to be when you grow up? And it sounds like I'm making this even worse, but I'm really not. So
more options are not a good thing. And more options. To be honest with you, and I'll let's go wind the way back machine to 2008. Yeah. I think the first thing I ever had retweeted by Guy Kawasaki now makes me laugh because someone asked me if I was an entrepreneur and I said, no, they work too hard. Which, when it comes right down to it, obviously as a parent and And it is very hard to make that balance between, do I want to spend the amount of time it takes to do a startup, which to do one successfully takes a lot of commitment and a lot of time and a lot of hours, or do I want to, do you work to live or do you live to work? Those are two entirely different things. And following your passion usually means living to work, which is a little bit different than working to live, which is what you're talking about with the factory stuff.
Absolutely. And it's a tough one. A lot of people talk about work-life balance, or they pretend that they have two different lives, and here's my work life over here, and here's this other thing, and it's totally separate. And we know that so many times it bleeds together. That's one of the nice, rewarding things, I guess you could say, about being an entrepreneur or being your own boss, is you can kind of set hours and accommodate your family. So, if something comes up, you can always be there. But it's not always that simple, right? Because you could be missing opportunity. A lot of people, when the Steve Jobs book came out, they kind of reevaluated their lives and they said, wow, I don't necessarily want to be like that. That scares me. And it feels like their kids, his kids didn't know him, or it wasn't necessarily there. So it's a tough one. And it doesn't just mean what you want to be when you grow up, doesn't just mean being an entrepreneur. It could be working for somebody else. And there's a lot of middle ground, right? So you don't have to go back and work for the factory, because that's kind of a promise that's going away. And you don't have to be the leader that's the crazy entrepreneur that's taking all the risk. There's a wonderful TED Talk where it talks about the first follower. Have you ever seen this one? There's this great thing. I'll paint you a picture. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'll try to come back around and leave some links on this later on. I'll dig it up. So just imagine there's just beautiful weather, and it's the side of this, lush green mountain. Everybody's sitting there and on blankets and towels, and they've got, picnics going on. They've got music going on, and everybody's just kind of chilling out. And then all of a sudden, this guy gets up and he just starts dancing like a crazy person. And if you're all, gifting this and putting it on Twitter, now's your chance to do it, because I'm moving my hands around. All right, you get the idea. Yeah. So this guy is just like that, but totally out of his seat, just totally out of his mind. He just looks like he's completely on drugs, and everybody's like staring at him like, what are you doing, dude? Like, what is this? So what's going on here? So he's doing this and he's doing this, and he's just, the type, he doesn't care, and he's just dancing, and you get the impression that he could just be doing this all day, and he's not seeking anybody's approval. He's just going for it, right? So then, out of nowhere, a second guy comes in, and he starts following him along and doing all the crazy dance. And then a third, and then a fourth trickle in, and then a fifth and a sixth. And then it's just mobbed, and there's like 200 people, and they're all in there. Is it how to start a movement? It probably is ST3 design. I'm not looking at that link right now. If you could drop that in the chat, that would be awesome. And I could take a look, and I'm pretty sure that that's it. So the point of...
That sounds great.
Yeah, the point of the video and the point that I'm trying to make is sometimes the leader is actually just a crazy guy dancing, and he may not have a fully fledged product. He may have this great idea called Twitter, but he doesn't even know it yet. And that's not exactly it. So sometimes the first follower is actually the leader, and sometimes it's the third or fourth or fifth or sixth or 20th. You look at Marissa Mayer, whatever you might think of her and whatever you might think of Yahoo, she was actually person number 20, I think, in Google, and she made all sorts of crazy things happen. So she was one of the first.
Marissa's actually very, very talented woman. So.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. I mean, if you guys don't think that she's talented, you should just leave this channel, because that's crazy if you think she's not talented. Be clear, right? But the thing is, to be an early follower is very much a leader when you actually do rocket ship to an enormous kind of organization. So that's a big thing that people could be when they want to grow up. And it gives them a little more safety. It doesn't necessarily mean that company is going to be around a couple of years down the road, right? But you're taking a chance on an entrepreneur, but at least they have to, bear the brunt of it, right? When it comes to the hard decisions and all of that. So that gives a little bit more safety and security, sorta. And I think that's really where the world is going, that, you can you can start a train and, lay down the tracks as it's going, or you can get on somebody else's train and you hope to God that they know what they're doing, or you could go back to work for a large place. And I think a lot of it really has to do, thanks for all those. It's awesome with me. I'm glad you're related. So I'm trying to get to 300 though. No, I don't really care. Wherever you want to bring it to.
Okay.
It is funny though at the end of it to really see like how far it gets to. So I think a lot of it just comes down to your personality, what you love, what you believe in, because there's a commonly used word, because we love all the buzzwords in our tech and entrepreneurial world, called an intrapreneur. So a couple of months ago, I was talking to a buddy. He worked for a large organization in New York City, and he was totally ready to go out on his own. And I said, whoa, hold on. Like, do you know what you're doing? He's like, what are you talking about? I feel great about this. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk. And I said stuff like, is your spouse on board? Do you have 6 months of savings? You know, do you know how to break people's kneecaps for money? Because the problem with a lot of people who work in the factory is that they're also not only in the factory, but they're in the womb, guys. They don't necessarily know or realize, they're not actually cognizant of throughout the day, that somebody's giving them a steady paycheck every other week, that people are taking care of all sorts of benefits, that are taking care of all sorts of things that you don't think about. But then when you have to go out there in the world, it suddenly becomes really hard. So this is the part of the game that I call, people can be subject matter experts, and that does not make them entrepreneurs. You can be a subject matter expert.
Exactly.
If you want to take the jump, go work for somebody else, whether it's great big factory or tiny little factory to come.
The infrastructure is the hardest part, and that's the thing that nobody ever tells you when you have the great idea.
Right.
Apparently, I have a neighbor with dogs.
I didn't think you were barking. If you can bark, here, this is just for that.
Well, that'll teach me not to do a blab out on my deck. But there is that concept when we're talking, and actually I let me scroll back here because I saw somebody, SD3 Design, was talking about how the promise of social media kind of gives us the 1% who can crush it and the 99% who are saying, what am I supposed to do now? And honestly, there is a side to that, which is, I'm lucky. My mother built 9 different businesses successfully when I was growing up. So I kind of got to see the back end of the fact that it isn't just, I've got a great idea, magic. It really is a lot of work. So one of the things I think that we don't talk about a lot is, do you have the skill set to do all of the other stuff that goes with building something? And that a company isn't just about the idea, the product, and getting it out there with an MVP, that it's also about building a company. And I kind of like that idea of being a first follower. It's okay for, not all of us were designed to be independent business people. Not all of us were designed to be billing everything and paying paychecks and making sure that the company's moving forward and developing it. So that's something I actually, thank you for focusing on that SD3 Design. That helped.
It's an important point. Yeah. Absolutely. And let's hit a couple other, I saw a few other points that were going in there. That SD3 Design's full of a lot of really good feedback right now. The promise of social media as a venue to find success is elusive at best. The 1%ers learn to crush it, and the 99%ers are trying to figure it out. Well, here's the thing. Nothing's really that new about that. Social just made things a little lower barrier of entry, faster to screw up. So whether you are a musician or starting a restaurant, there's lots of things that people are really bad at that most people fail at, right? Being a professional basketball player, if you're 7 feet tall doesn't mean that you're good, right? You could be 5'11" and be pretty good. You're going to be disadvantaged, but here's the point that social, Lucretia and I, both from the Wild West crazy days, we both joined Twitter in 2007, I think. So we've been on there for 9 years. What in the world? Whew, I feel older at it. So on to happier things. So, yeah, the point of the matter is, like, we are people that get paid or have in the past to consult with very large companies on how to use these tools. I mean, we have, nowadays on the infographic side, we actually work for Twitter. So there is a lot of knowledge between the two of us in social. And I'd say certainly in a way we've both made it, and that's great. And I think that there are people that maybe are a lot more well-known than us in social. And I think that right around kind of that housing market destruction, 2008, 2009 time, everybody had to do a couple of different things. They either had to quit screwing around and go get jobs, or they started ramping up from there. So I think that was kind of a big moment of change. And then the social world changed a lot then too. So a lot of things have happened through the first couple of waves of social. So the first wave was around 2006, 2007. That was called Nobody Knew What They Were Doing. You'd watch the news and you'd watch all the news anchors say, oh, look, I'm on Twitter. Oh, tweet with me. Oh, look, I retweet. Insanity.
I'd even go back further. I'd say that we were looking at, back in the mid-90s when people were saying, what is this World Wide Web thing? That we had of a whole shift then. The fundamental concept of doing business that is not face-to-face and that is face-to-face like this. We knew we were going to get here, but we weren't here yet.
Right.
So,
yeah. I always think of that world as the pre-social world. I mean, you could argue, you had your MySpace and Friendster. LinkedIn was out there. But I don't know.
I was off.
What's that?
Go ahead. Yeah, and there's a certain side to at what point do we look at it as those of us who are geeks who've been off in this land forever versus the general public. And my rule of thumb has always been when your parents are going, how do I use this? You've got a better sense of the fact that it's now public, that it is now everybody doing this.
Right.
At least my parents anyway.
As soon as our parents are on Snapchat, then forget it.
Then it will die.
I don't think that's happening too much yet. But I mean, for people like us, I guess it is. But that's a different story. So your dad is 88. I've known people in the high 80s that are podcasters. You'd be amazed how many people that you think are super old that, there's no way that they do social. There's no way that do all these different things. Thank you for joining, Roxanne. I appreciate you coming in. So I think that age is but a number. It doesn't mean anything. A lot of people who actually have a lot of experience can focus better than some of these youngins and really focus in.
My Nana turns 98 today down in Dallas.
Wow.
And she actually has a Facebook account. I don't think she really uses it, but she has one. My mother actually is very adept at it. I kind of got it from her in the first place. But there's a certain amount of, hey, we got Blenster's Parents Rock Linux, which, yay.
Very cool.
Linux is good. But there's that same side to things where even with that, where are we going to be work-wise? I mean, you talked about AI earlier when we were doing this, and where are we going to be work-wise 10 years from now? And in terms of looking at what do I want to be when I grow up, there's a certain amount of that says I have to take into consideration what will be available. Are the kinds of jobs that I could say, oh, well, you know what? I think I'll just go back and maybe do like an office job and handle that while my child's still finishing high school. That's not necessarily going to be an option.
Right.
I mean, a lot of stuff's getting automated on levels that we won't have. And I'm not sure. Ageism is a factor too, just so we're on that, because we touched on age. And there's a certain amount of, I've worked with some startups where I've got guys who are 22 looking at me and saying, wow, you know a lot about coding and a lot about startups and all these people. How do you know this stuff? And you say, I'm old, I'm not dead.
Right. Yeah, ageism is a serious issue. And I mean, I think, first off, it's illegal. Armini, thank you for joining. So, where do we even begin with this? So ageism is a serious issue. I think a lot of people are not necessarily prepared to take a chance or give the so-called larger salary to other people. But I don't know. I think that there are definitely people that, I think it's just how good a fit you are for an organization, how good a fit you are for the role. It doesn't mean that you have to have been doing it since the beginning of time in that role. I think it's the promise that you see in the interview. You should hear me in an interview, guys, though. That's a whole other hour in itself, and I think it's almost like a psychological interrogation. But seriously, where do you even go with that? So, man, it's so tough because people don't want to take a chance on it, but people can be brilliant. And I think the longer you work in something, the better you are at it. I mean, implying that you get better. So, a lot of people have heard me and bring up, and many people have heard of the 10,000 hour rule. It takes years to get good at something, to truly master something. So a lot, nobody's an expert at Blab yet, including Blab, because it hasn't been around long enough, right? So the next iteration of Blab, we won't have all the connection issues, and they'll add out a lot of product extensions and all things like that. And I would anticipate it getting a lot better. It seems like one of the best pieces of software I've used this year. I know this year's just starting off, but last year to this year. But ageism, the new generation. So I'm 38, so I kind of fit outside of millennials, and I'd say a lot of people call me Gen X, but depending on what you read.
He's lagging for me again too. Sorry, Brett.
Here. So I'm gonna jump out and jump back in, unless you can hear me okay.
We'll be here. And now you're back again. Oh, and then he's gone again. And I have to agree with you. Talking about putting some of our CEOs online. I concur. Oh, and you're back again. Yay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm a CEO and I'm pretty transparent. I think most CEOs do not have the balls to go on an unscripted, raw thing like this ever. Well, and I think a lot of them.
To be fair, and I've worked with PR training in the past with some people. There is a certain amount. The last people who are going to go for a social presence are the lawyers, just because there's liability issues and there's a certain level of what do you say and what's the repercussion from what you say. On the same level, from a PR perspective, there's a bit of a fear of if someone doesn't have a PR training, do you go on? What did you say? What impact does it have on the company? Are you a publicly traded company? That kind of, that's a whole other, we can do another show on that someday. I'd love to, but it's a little different. I mean, if you're the CEO of your company, like Brian doesn't actually have a lawyer over his shoulder looking at him saying, don't say that. But if you're Richard Branson, there's about 5 of them. So.
I'm very self-guarded, and I choose my words very carefully. I almost went to law school, and I write a lot of stuff in our own contracts and stuff like that. So I'm pretty mindful about the kinds of stuff that I say. And speaking of people that are older than me, my parents just joined. Hey, Mom and Dad. That's great.
Hey, Mom and Dad.
So, look, Mom on TV, sort of. So that's cool. Yeah, but I wanted to talk about, so the older generation, so the baby boomers, the lost generation. So part of the government has a branch called the SBA, Small Business Association, or Small Business, whatever the
Small Business Administration.
So part of that network has something called SCORE, which I'm not even going to attempt that acronym, some sort of society, here I am attempting it, some sort of Society of Retired Executives. That's the RE. And we actually went to them about our business, and they're like, what do you need us for? You're this cool company and this and that. And it's like, hey guys, like, haven't you all been working decades in marketing and sales and all these different things? We have tons of stuff to learn from you. And I feel that depending on what generation you're in, you're wired a little bit different. It's not that you intend to be the annoying millennial or whatever it is, or the Gen X, we built the internet, or the boomers that are saying, I don't understand any of these kids with these smartphones. Everybody has the potential to join into all this stuff. Most of this technology from the user experience end is so super, super dead easy. You don't have to code, you don't have to know Linux. I mean, just picking up an iPhone, there's nothing to it, guys. So I think, though, that people, it comes down to, did you grow up with the internet of today as a child and you never had those rules before that? Did it happen to you when you were already in your formative years, where you're already an adult? Did you have to pick this up, towards the end of your career? So I think that we are a product of our circumstances and environment. I think we can all change and learn and grow. But I think that the big thing these days is that I think there's the old school of how people do business, back when people just did business with a handshake and a smile, and there weren't marketing automation systems and predictive analytics, and there weren't artificial intelligence robots to manage your Google Calendar. And then you have people that only rely on that. And I think that it would be helpful for everybody to look at the world, be a little bit more rounded. So everybody on the West Coast says software is eating the world. And then you have people that are on the East Coast, they're saying, what are you talking about? It's New York hustle. And and they just collide all day long. And I think they're both wrong, right? I think that you need to be well-rounded and multi-dimensional. So like what we were talking about before, people that are just talking about code all day, it's not the only skill, right? I think there's a lot of different soft skills. There's a lot of different things if you want to be an entrepreneur. There's a lot of things if you want to be the first follower, if you're going to be the 500th follower. I think that these are skills for wherever you find that you want to be when you grow up, whenever that day comes. I'm pretty fond of saying that we're all just giant children and none of us actually know what the heck we're doing. So, that's part of why the title is what it is today. I think that you really have to be mindful of this whole broad set of skills to really figure out how you can apply all these different things and then figure out what you love. So,
in SD3 design, if you get Richard Branson in here, we're in trouble.
That would be, yeah, we'd love to have him on. That Richard is
one of the things
dyslexic.
that you're mentioning there. I was really very, very fortunate. And I'm not going to say how long ago it was, but those of you with internet access could probably track it down just based on the company. When I was first married to my husband, we both worked for a company known as JD Edwards for a while, which was the one of the big five when it came to enterprise database systems. And there was a headline back when I was younger than that in the newspaper in Colorado that said Colorado's 35 newest millionaires. And that was because JD Edwards had gone public and a lot of their original 35 employees had suddenly overnight become millionaires from their stock at a time when that wasn't really the norm. And when I worked there several years later, of the 35 people, 23 of them were still working there. They were working their own time, and they didn't have to. They certainly had enough to retire, but they were working there as knowledge bases. And essentially they would come in when they wanted to, and they would put time in, but they had known the software from iteration day one through everything. And they were the best resource that company had for people coming in, not because they maybe knew the latest and greatest, whatever the thing was, but they knew the history of the company, and they knew the history of the software, and they knew pretty much the corporate culture inside out. And it was kind of a knowledge base that I don't think you can get. That concept of when you said you're talking to the SCORE people, you say, well, what good can we do you? A lot. I mean, there's a certain amount of, you may not have a specific skill set, like maybe you can't code in Python. That's fine. If you know what it is that the person's trying to code, you say, this is actually the skill set. They're writing a program for accounting. If you know accounting, that's useful, which is a kind of a, knowledge bases are huge. And our best knowledge bases are people. They're not really databases, much as I was saying I worked with databases. So, and see, okay, so we'll see. You guys.
Hey, if you can get on, fantastic.
I'm sure you get Richard Branson here, then I will just sit and listen to him about what I want to be when I grow up, because he's got it figured out.
We're happy to hear what he has to say. And, overcoming adversity, whether you are too old as deemed by society or not perfect in the way you learn, for those of you who don't know part of Sir Richard's story, he's dyslexic. He can't read 10 books a year. But the thing is, when you have an underdeveloped sense, whether it's being dyslexic or any other kind of learning disability, or let's say you're blind or deaf or any kind of thing that has a natural disability that inhibits your full ability to learn, as many people do in more of a mainstream environment, what you end up doing is you overdevelop your other senses because you have to, right? You have to survive. How is he going to get through junior high school? How's he going to get through elementary school? How's he going to get through kindergarten, right? It's crazy. So what do you think?
I'm going to give you a little bit of information that is tangentially related to that. The trivia is kind of my thing, information junkie. But dyslexia, actually, from a cognitive brain standpoint, and there's some interesting studies on this, has to do with pattern recognition. And the fact that if you're in the jungle, if a tiger's coming at you straight up, you need to recognize it. If it's coming at you from the side, you need to recognize it. Whatever angle the tiger is coming at you from, you need to be able to recognize it. And one of the hardest things in coding is 3D modeling. This pen is a pen, and your brain recognizes a pen no matter which direction I'm holding it. You can say, oh, that's a pen she's got. But little letters like P and D and B and Q, those are all the same letter, just from different angles. So there's an advanced processing that was built in. Dyslexia is actually the ability to recognize the tiger coming at you from any direction, whether it's a tiger versus a coffee cup. So there is an advantage to it. We call it a learning disability. It's not so much a learning disability as it's a different way of perceiving things. And when you've got a set way of working and a set function, you always say, oh, this is how we go through school. So Richard had to figure out how to get around that by recognizing the tiger. So my pen can go any direction. That's harder to code just from a programmer's perspective, just so you guys know, than pretty much anything else with 3D modeling, is the ability to look at something from any angle and tell you what it is. So that's actually an evolutionary advantage. Back to what you're saying. Sorry.
It's a very important point. It doesn't, just because society thinks that it's a disadvantage, it's ridiculous. It's just that not everybody's like that. So I am a left-handed person. So does that mean I'm disadvantaged? A lot of people will say, all these little pop quiz things say that I'm supposed to be smarter and all that, but is that true? I mean, there's so many ways that people try to typecast people and put them in a box bucket label that is fairly ridiculous. So it's making the most of what you have and being able to really go through with that. Absolutely. It looks like we've got a few other great points in here. Richard may watch them.
Well, we're good with that, because actually there's a great deal of respect for him here. So
absolutely, it's wonderful. Right,
he's one of my icons too. There is
nobody's in here. We've got nothing but respect.
Yeah. Well, and we've discussed Marissa Meyer, who is also amazing, and Richard Branson, and I'm sure we could go a number 4. But I'm also willing to bet if you went back and asked an 18-year-old Richard Branson or an 18-year-old Marissa Meyer, or heck, even an 18-year-old President Obama, what they wanted to be when they grew up, the answer is probably not where they are right now. There wasn't the likelihood of, I know where I'm going. The journey is part of the whole growth thing. So the destination is, it's more like multiple destinations. If you talk about getting on a train and there's multiple stops, I've been through multiple stops. Most of us have been, unless you're 18 and you're watching this, in which case you've kind of gone through a few, but not that many. Right. You're going in a direction, and the question is, where do you want to go next? And that's, thank you. I like watching the little faces on this interface, but
I think JP makes your point here. I think you should keep going on it. Oh, you can't stop at 399. What is this? I'm OCD. 400. There you go. All right, good. See, that's my story. I can't have 399 handle out there.
You know what? And that same thing. There really is 399, 400. I do that too, but I like odd numbers. So,
okay,
and I'm getting text while we're doing this too. It's like, so I lost my train of thought there. Speaking of trains, there is something to be said for. I'm pretty sure that if you asked, and I could be incorrect, but if you asked Richard Branson if he's grown up and this is what he's going to be, he's kind of a serial entrepreneur himself. He's developed a lot of different businesses. I mean, the umbrella Virgin businesses. He's done music. He's done transportation. He's done a lot of different systems. We're talking about. I guess the real question is, can you grow up? Is there this is what I'm going to be for the rest of my life? Because I do know a few people who've done that. I'm really impressed by them, but they're the minority. I sure
hope we don't have to grow up. That would be terrible.
Well, my 98-year-old Nana we were talking about before was she's convinced that age is a matter of mind, and there are people who are much older than she is, where she is in their 70s, because that's it. They're done. They're waiting for something, waiting for death, waiting for an end. She's lived. She's kind of my mentor and my role model. The fact that at 98 she's still feisty and together and hasn't quite given up on that is a good thing. Responsibility is fun.
Absolutely. It can be.
That's a different thing. I'm not sure about that.
As you get older, you do get more responsibilities. Nobody's going to argue that.
Well, and having an almost 13-year-old, I'll tell you, she asked me why it is that we get privileges. And I said, you know, every privilege comes with a responsibility. So it's a balance. It's definitely a balance. You know, we look an awful lot of people and say, well, why does he get to do that? And you say, because he took responsibility for that other thing. You know, and it is. The entrepreneurs out there, those of you who are doing that, I'm massively a fan, because you're taking a responsibility on that I don't have to, which is building something and seeing it through from concept to functionality. So that's a, but I like the responsibility is fun argument. I'm not sure about that.
I think you can make anything fun if you truly enjoy what you're doing, whether you're working for somebody else, if you're working for yourself, you can absolutely make it fun. I mean, no question, I have responsibilities to my team, to our clients, to my family, to my community, and I think I'm having the time of my life, right? And something I also wanted to bring into this, now, Richard, Marissa, Obama, all these people, while the 18-year-old version of themselves may not have been able, welcome Kevin, may not have been able to have articulated what they were going to be when they grew up. I mean, would Obama at 18 be able to say, I'm going to be the president? I mean, come on, that's very unlikely. Marissa is going to say, oh yeah, I'm going to be the number 20 at Google and be the CEO of Yahoo. Of course not. They didn't even exist, right? I mean, we didn't even have search engines yet. We didn't have the web. It's impossible for them to have predicted exact things. Richard's a little different, but even him, I doubt very highly that he would say that. But one thing that I would argue is that I personally can speak from this experience, and I'm sure many other people I talk to, people that build something great, wherever, you know, whatever level of success, but if you're really, you know, very much captured the art of mastery in what it is you're doing, I think that before you do that, you have a moment of clarity where you just see something that other people in the world don't see. So whether that's, you know, the guys at Uber or the guys at Airbnb, and they just say, you know, hotels suck. Why are we doing this, right? Or Uber says,
I'm going to disagree with you on that. Because I really believe in zeitgeist. And the story of Alexander Graham Bell and the French-Canadian guy who both filed the telephone patent 5 hours apart on the same day.
Right.
I think we all see needs. And the difference between an entrepreneur and the rest of us is we see a need and we go, God, I wish somebody would do that. Versus an entrepreneur says, I've seen a need, I'm going to fix that. Which is it's a slightly different, it's just that call to action, the difference between identifying something that is needed and providing something that is needed. It's a very fine line, but it's kind of like there's a zeitgeist that says anybody could have put these things together. Anybody knew that there was a point for a good need for a live streaming, because that's where we'd gone. But building it and actually being the person who sees it through from concept to, I mean, you, for instance, are not the only infographic company out there, but you built it.
Yes, we are.
You saw it, you knew there was a need for it, and you built it, right?
Right.
That's the difference. The difference between the person who, I mean, even Richard Branson is not alone. They say in the startup world, if you have a good idea, assume competition. Whether or not you know that it's out there, assume it, because if it's a good idea, other people are noticing there's a need for it too. They're saying, you know what? I really wish somebody would develop this thing. I really wish somebody would have an ability for me to borrow a car or have somebody else drive me that wasn't attacked.
So let's go deeper into this point, because it's a very important one. I'm going to argue that we're all saying the same thing here. Whether we're going to say zeitgeist, we're going to say moment of clarity, and we're going to talk about competition. We're going to talk about we're not the only people doing the world. So I would argue that people go ahead, and there's always going to be somebody that does it first. And we're probably not going to know who that is, because the person who does it first usually does a really crappy job of it. They do a prototype that never hits the market. They write, they make like some drawings of it and it never happens, right? So who made the first personal computer? Let's try that one. Come on.
First PC?
I don't have to put you on.
Like individual computer, because my first one was an Osborne, but that's going way back.
Oh no, where's? Can we all hear everybody?
No, I've lost you somehow.
All right, let me go back on and off again. Apparently, I'm talking about personal computers. That's a tough one. I'm going to jump back on.
You know what? Okay. I have Blintz has an Osborne in the basement. Yeah, the portable, 35-pound portable dual floppy drive, 3-inch screen portable computer with no operating system. And Renee says you're ghosting, which I assume means that we could hear you briefly and then you've gone away. You know what? I learned WordStar on an Osborne, and that taught me all the HTML I ever needed way back when. I think I can hear Brian coming back, hopefully. We've had a few connection problems today. But going back to the thing he was talking about, and I'm sure he will talk about when he comes in, whether we're talking about a moment of clarity, whether we're talking about finding that point of need that someone has. Something much earlier on in our conversation, and I'm sorry, I could scroll back, but I'm a little lost by it. Someone said it is execution, it is the responsibility, and responsibility is the ability, the discipline to keep that and move forward. Welcome back, Brian. He's back. I think you're back. Are you back with us?
I'm here. Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm moving around and everything. I'm dancing on the mat. Okay. So,
I feel like I'm in the Brady Bunch here.
Yeah, so technology hops aside, jumping back onto the record.
You were mentioning to us who developed the first personal computer.
Right.
And we have to go back, and I'm sitting here trying to remember which one it is because I used to have a brain and I used to have a memory.
Okay, good.
But I don't. You know, IBM did PCs, but that's not who came up with the first one.
Right.
And I'm trying to remember who it was. And it certainly wasn't, much as we love Wozniak and we love what he built, it was not Apple either.
No, it was not. But Apple got the idea because Apple was the first successful commercialized personal computer in the very early, probably 83, 84, right around.
Before that. No, before that, because I was coding on an Apple IIe in 1980. So.
Right. But I'm saying when it really hit where quite a few homes and lots of schools and places, when it really hit that it was in the public's consciousness to a big degree, I'd say 83, 84 was when it massively went. But yeah, good point. I would say earlier 80s too. So where did they get all these ideas from? Where did they get, where'd they get this thing? Where'd they get the mouse? Where'd they get the keyboard?
I know where they got the mouse.
Yeah. Okay, where'd he get that?
From the IBM campus. The Spark campus.
Yeah, we're supposed to know something.
Xerox, I said it now. Xerox Spark campus. Thank you. SPARC.
Exactly. That's where I was going. So Xerox Park basically made the personal computer. And somebody's going to tell me, oh, no, it's this other obscure place. And that's probably true, too. Maybe Xerox stole some other stuff. But Xerox was sitting on everything. They invented the mouse. I don't know if they invented the graphical user interface, but they had a very early one. They had the keyboard. I mean, they had all these different. Obviously, they didn't invent a keyboard because you had, typewriters before you had a computer. But the point is that those guys were sitting on it, but they didn't act. So sometimes you have it where the first player that goes in sucks. They don't move fast enough. They don't have the right mindset, whatever it is. So it's no pleasure to be first, right? I mean, look at the light bulb, look at electricity, and look at basically.
Well, there are some first to markets that have, I mean, I'm going to tell you, we look at Tesla and say, I'd like to be Elon Musk right now, but first to markets are interesting.
Let's talk about Elon Musk, though. So Elon Musk made his fortune in the PayPal mafia, right? That whole graduating class of people that made it big. He could have lived for the rest of his life in total comfort, could have sat on the beach and not done another damn thing and would have been fine, right?
Oh, that's not his personality, though.
But no, you know that he doesn't work that way. And he was at the point of complete and total failure because he had a few companies that all were doing terrible, right? He had SpaceX, couldn't launch anything well. He had Tesla, which was all conceptual. And the other one that people don't talk about these days because Tesla and SpaceX are exciting right now, Solar City. That also wasn't off the ground. He had this total gamble on 3 companies that weren't doing anything. He was totally building a business, and he turned it around.
Well, but again, we're talking about, and we're back to this thing again. You mentioned earlier people who go big corporation. and there are entrepreneurs, and there are first guys, and there are first followers. It is very, I think our hardest thing for any of us, I mean, you seem to have done pretty well, but is to figure out which part of the equation we want to be. I mean, honestly, I have the just massive odd of us, the people we've been talking about today. I also do not have the drive or desire to put as many hours into building companies as they do. I mean, for instance, Jack Dorsey is a great example for me.
Oh, yeah.
He's being CEO of Twitter and Square at the same time.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have, I mean, his social life and not married, not kids, those are his babies right now. Those are his world. And that guy puts in more hours than just about anybody I know. And there's a certain level at which you say, do I want to be that when I grow up? And my answer, unfortunately, is no. I had opportunities to do the let's build that and spend 120 hours a week focusing on this to turn it into a, 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure company.
Right.
And it's not the life choices I made. I don't think all of us make that choice. I think it takes a special kind of person to say, I will do this at all costs. And obviously Musk is one of those. Because building those 3 companies you just mentioned at the same time, that's impressive. 1 would be impressive. 3 is.
I'm not even sure impressive is the word I would use. I mean, it's almost suicidal. So, I mean, we talk about Jack, right? And we say, how can one human being run 2 public companies, right? That are fast growth companies. I can't even imagine how Elon Musk does 3. Well, they're not public, but 3 massive companies, right? Tesla's public, SpaceX, and Solar City, or I don't recall.
SpaceX is private still. I'm not sure if Solar City is public or not. If anybody in our audience happens to know whether it's public or not, let us know.
Solar City got a lot of venture capital funding, but I don't know if it went. Oh, thanks for checking out the site. I appreciate that. So yeah, you'll see the other thing and let me say something. There's another piece. Welcome, Momo1778. Appreciate you joining. Hopefully this is the first good blab experience for you, even though I think you already just left. All right. So, there's a piece of this that, sure, absolutely. You can add me the code snippet. Absolutely. So yeah. Lost the train of thought on that. So what was I just saying?
You know what? I think we're kind of getting to a point that we are going to have to wrap it up because it's about 2:20 and we've been kind of trying to do this for about 20 minutes. Very fortunately with some fabulous people in the audience to help us get back on track every time. But
so how about we do real quick? Why don't we take some questions if anybody wants to join? Lucretia, you have a few more minutes for just some questions from the crowd?
I do. I'm good. I just don't want to end up having our people say, well, especially if Sir Branson drops by, we don't want to keep him busy for an hour and 20 minutes of.
This is true. This is true.
But yeah, any questions would
any questions from the audience? The best way to see it is
last Robin.
Yeah, and if Robin's still here, that'd be great too. So the best way to ask questions, guys, is to hit /Q, type in your question, put it in chat, or if any of you want to jump on video, there's 2 open seats right now. So if anybody wants to jump in, feel free. You don't have to be grown up. You do not have to be at least this tall to ride the ride. Wherever you are.
Obviously, we don't have to be grown up because I wouldn't be on here if we had to be grown up.
Why do you say that?
Because we're still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, right?
Right. Here's that thing, right? Yep. So,
which honestly, I've been very fortunate. Since we don't seem to have a great deal of questions, I'll tell one more anecdotal story that you can work with later on and tell me what I should do with it, Brian. But again, I have to rewind the clock to 2008, and I was in Las Vegas, and I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who I happen to know because of the internet, Tony Hsieh, who is the guy that you may know from the CEO of Zappos, and you may know from Delivering Happiness. And Tony astutely looked at me at one point in time and said, "Can you tell me what your dream job is?" And I said, I have no idea my dream job. I don't know. I mean, it could be anything. And he said, if you don't know what it is, how are you going to know when it shows up?
It's true.
and I've been working on that for oh gosh, 2008. So what, we're talking about 7 years now. And I'm still not sure if I have an answer for Tony on that one. And I'm still not sure what my answer for my dream job is, because it too much opportunity, perhaps, as I suffer from that. It's kind of like fear of missing out, but it's not more fear of missing out as it is that really my dream job? So, I like ST3 Design's question about biggest barrier to success you overcame. No, that's a great question. That's not a lame question. Because you see, Brian is going to be giving me some advice here. I'm curious too. So, feel free to answer either one of those.
So, gosh, if you don't know what you want to be, then you don't know what you want to be yet. That almost sounds like a Yogi Berra-ism, but that's very much the case. I love talking about TikToks. There's a great one about a classical music composer, and his name escapes me at the moment, but he's got a great piece talking about his ability to really break through someone's consciousness, whether they like classical music or not, so they can appreciate it, and they can really resonate, which is a good word because we're talking about music, with the crowd, right? So he can deliver over something to the crowd that people can truly respect and really just be in tune with. And he says, what kind of job am I doing if my students' eyes or my crowd's eyes are not shining, right? And that sounds like just one of these touchy-feely, what's going on here kinds of things, but it's true. If you can't believe something yourself, right? If you don't know that to be true for yourself, how are you ever going to sell thing one? Whether you're the CEO, whether you're the salesman, whether you're talking to your boss, how can you get this across if you don't believe it with your heart? And I get this fight a lot too. A lot of people are like, oh, I need to, rule by this iron fist and all that. And people are like, oh, you can't be nice to people. And this, people just they don't understand a method of transparency and openness. I think Tony gets that really well. Tony is very nice with people and is very not nice with people. So part of Zappo's deal, which is kind of famous by now, and a lot of human resources places scratch their heads in awe and amazement, is, hey, if you don't like it in the first 2 weeks, we're going to pay you to get the hell out of here. And that's amazing, right? It's a smart thing. A lot of people don't do that. So I think, gosh, so that's one piece of it. Now, biggest barrier of success to overcome? Yeah, I think really figuring out the kind of thing that I knew I wanted to be, that I enjoyed, that I was good at. And the other piece is that I thought the world needed, that could actually do well. So there's a lot of things that you might be good at, but if you can make pasta really well by microwaving something, and it's not truly your creation, that's nice. But everybody can do that, so you're not really getting there. That's really not a wonderful answer as an example there. But my point being, I'm not even sure where I was going with that one, but the point of the matter is you have to believe in yourself. You have to overcome a lot of your fear. It doesn't mean that I live without fear, and 1,000 things go wrong a day. I can, talk to a Fortune 500 and then everything goes wrong 10 minutes later and I'm the janitor.
Well,
yeah.
I like the fact that ST3 is keeping us on target here.
Yeah.
So I still haven't quite figured out how I would know my dream job if it showed up. But I also think that partially, and Rob, the guest, who is not as well known as he should be, he is works for Rackspace in Texas, recently posted something that I have to agree with. He's made a lot of the positions in the last 20 years that he has made. They didn't exist until he sat down and said, you need this, and I'm good at this. And it's kind of I guess part of what I need to do right now, and I assume most of us do, is figure out what someone else needs that I do really well. And then I just have to tell them so that they'll hear me, right? And that's, to SD3's question is, if Richard Branson asked me, I probably wouldn't be that articulate because I'd be having a hard time breathing. But I think that's it. I think it comes down to wanting to find what it is that I do well that somebody else has a need for, and then making that merge.
Right.
Thank you, and I'm
going to take one more stab at this before we go. I know you got to go shortly, Lucretia. So the Richard Branson more polished answer is to, like I said before, overcome fear and then be able to spread my wings and fly. A lot of people think that there's things that I'm great at and there's things that I'm bad at, and I need to be well-rounded. So I'm going to work on all these things that I'm bad at, and I'm also going to work on these things that I'm great at. Terrible advice. You need to go crazy and double down on everything that you're great at and everything else that you suck at. That's what you get your virtual assistant for, right? That's what you do there. So I think the moment that I realized that this is never going to grow to the point where I think it could be the most useful out there to the world, that I could really, truly enjoy myself. So if you like all that Myers-Briggs stuff, I'm an ENTP. So I'm like the visionary guy. So I love being the idea guy. I love kind of jumping in and whirlwinding and coming up with all sorts of great things. But if you want to count on me to do every little piece by piece practical thing, I'm going to pull my hair out and just really, have a terrible experience. And I don't like doing it like that. That's where, the team says, okay, Brian, well, we're going to take it from here. Thanks for your little insight and all that, and go another little insight over here. So I think that when you really figure out what you're truly very, very good at, really spend a lot of time, and like other people said on this before, spend some time of your day, drive-by idea shooter. No, not quite. I spend a little bit more. Not the initial flash of light, that everybody has that, but I'm saying I just see things in a certain.
How do I get that?
Have you got what?
That sounds like my dream job. I think he's nailed it.
Drive-by idea. Yeah, listen. I would love to just write titles for things all day. So yeah, I like the start. I love doing that. I'm not crazy about all the pieces and the finish, but I'm really happy that I've built a team where we can focus on those things together. So yeah, that's what I would say for if Richard showed up, and for everyone here. I think really doubling down on your strengths to really figure out what you're good at, you will exponentially get better at that, and you will become world-class at it if you try hard enough. You got to figure out what it is, and this is super. Yeah.
Next, you have to tell us how we then translate the I know I'm really good at this, and I'm doubling down on it too, and how do I get somebody to pay me to do it? That's the harder part.
And I'll answer that too. So back on that. So we talked about partnerships and co-founders. If you are not the sales one in the organization, that better be your co-founder. Otherwise, you guys just have a nice idea on a sketch pad. You just have the "what are you doing" Twitter without the vowels. That's how it works, plain and simple. If you can't sell the product, it doesn't sell itself. I don't care how cool Apple is. They've got salespeople too. They have marketing. They have advertising. Everybody needs that. And that doesn't mean the slicked back, snake oil salesman, used car salesman guy. Sales is helping people make informed decisions.
I'll tell you, sales is not my issue. I don't know about other people, but we're talking about selling yourself, slightly different than selling a product. And I say that in a nice way because there's an old line in sales and marketing that is I found to be true, whether you're talking about I'm selling something directly to you right here that I made, or I'm selling a large concept to a Fortune 100 company. And that is that people only ever buy two things. And that is good feelings or solutions to problems. And if you identify what it is you have, then you will identify how to sell it. And part of that is, for instance, everybody buys pants because you got to have something to cover yourself up. The question is, are you buying pants just so you've got something to wear? In which case you're probably buying a $30 pair of jeans someplace. Or are you buying pants that make you feel like you are the hottest thing since Sunday, in which case you're buying, a $300 pair of jeans that make your rear end look really good. Those are two different things, even though they're the same thing, and they're marketed differently. So to a certain extent, I guess I have to figure out whether I'm pants or I'm $300 jeans. So I'm going to stick with that one. But
yeah, that's a fair point. So it comes down to what is it you want to sell, right? So that should be a function of what you're good at that the world wants. There has to be a market demand, and you have to be really good at it. I would argue in the world of sales, it's a pyramid of three different things that you're selling. First, you're selling yourself. Then you're selling what the product or service does, and then you're actually selling the product or service. Most people go straight into the solution and they're going to explain 20 million things with all the complicated acronyms and all of that, and nobody cares, right? Because you haven't
No,
explained
not as a
before, right? Introduce yourself, huh? Right? So there's all sorts of things like that. So now if you are selling pants in whatever, you know, a mass chain outlet or something, the relationship changes a bit because they're your agent and all of that. So maybe this is more on a service, maybe this is more on a small business level, but I think the point still remains. And it also helps you figure out what you're good at. So I think people that think that sales are scary and they are afraid to come on video and, you know, those kinds of things, you know, if you're an introvert or anything like that, it's still worthwhile to understand how all that works, because you have somebody that, you know, is coming on as person number 2000, the point still remains. You still need to be marketable. You still need to have soft skills, and all of these things are important.
And I'm looking at our clock again, and you are as bad at wrapping up as I am, Brian. So
yeah, 10 million more people join. Thank you for joining, Ramon, but we're going to conclude it right here. I'll post the link for the recap in just a little bit, and would like to thank you so much for joining today, Lucretia. All sorts of props.
Thanks for having me, and you know what? It's been lovely, and I will definitely come back and hang out and watch some of these people and participate again. I'm sold. I'm sold on Blab as a tool. It's a good environment. There's some smart people that showed up for your show today, so I'm feeling kind of good about it. So thank you again, and I will talk to you soon.
Take care, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.